Hey guys, this story will touch your heart. A mother longed for her children's love but was forgotten until everything changed. Is there still time for forgiveness? Subscribe for more exciting stories and leave your comment. Your support means a lot to us. Let's reflect on the value of family.
Dona Chiara, a 78-year-old woman, sat by the window of her small apartment in a quaint European town, known for its aging population. The sun cast warm rays on the faded photographs that adorned the walls, capturing memories of a life filled with love, laughter, and hope. She had been a devoted wife and a caring mother, dreaming of growing old surrounded by the affection of her children, Matteo and Elisa. But as the years slipped away, so did the warmth she once felt from her family. Her husband had passed away over a decade ago, leaving her to navigate the twilight of her life alone. Chiara had poured her heart and soul into raising her children, nurturing their dreams, and celebrating their successes. Yet now, she felt like a ghost in her own home, an afterthought to the busy lives of her grown children. Matteo, her eldest, was consumed by his career, often traveling for work. Elisa, the youngest, was wrapped up in her own family, juggling the demands of motherhood and a part-time job. They rarely visited, and when they did, it was often out of obligation rather than genuine affection. Chiara had grown accustomed to the silence that filled her home, but that day, it felt heavier than usual. As she sat in her favorite chair, the familiar ache in her chest intensified. It was a sharp, stabbing pain that made her breath hitch. She hesitated, unsure if it was worth alarming her children. With trembling hands, she dialed Matteo's number, but it went straight to voicemail. "Matteo, it's your mother. I need you. Please call me back," she whispered, her voice cracking with worry. Next, she tried Elisa, praying for a more favorable response. "Mom, I'm busy right now. Can't you just call a taxi?" came the curt reply. The words pierced through her, leaving an emptiness that echoed in her heart. Chiara set the phone down slowly, her hands shaking as she realized the truth. She was alone. Days turned into weeks, and the pain in her chest persisted. Finally, after much internal struggle, she called for an ambulance. As she lay on the stretcher, the sirens wailing in the background, a sense of dread washed over her. Would anyone come to check on her? Would her children even know she was gone? Arriving at the hospital, Chiara was placed in a room filled with the beeping of machines and the bustling of nurses. The doctors soon delivered the grim news. She had a serious heart condition that required immediate treatment. As she lay in her hospital bed, surrounded by strangers, her heart sank further. Other elderly patients received flowers and visits from family members, laughter filling the air, while Chiara's room remained empty, devoid of any signs of love. Nights were the hardest. Alone in her thin hospital gown, she listened to the whispers of other patients and the footsteps of nurses echoing down the hall. In the depths of her loneliness, she reached for her journal, pouring out her heart in ink. "My children do not love me for real. I am dying and I am alone." The words flowed from her like a river, each one a testament to her despair. As the days passed, Chiara's hope dwindled. She longed for a familiar face, a comforting presence, but the door to her room remained silent. The nurses were kind, offering words of encouragement, but their compassion only highlighted her isolation. Every passing minute felt like an eternity, and with each tick of the clock, she felt the weight of her solitude pressing down harder. In her darkest moments, she pondered the choices that had led her here. Had she been a good mother? Had her love been enough? The questions spiraled in her mind, each one unanswered, each one adding to the heavy burden of her heart. She often caught herself dreaming of the past, family gatherings, laughter around the dinner table, the warmth of a hug from her children. Those memories now felt like distant echoes, fading into the shadows of her current reality. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Chiara heard a soft knock on the door. Her heart raced with anticipation. Could it be? But when the door opened, it was not her children standing there. It was a nurse, a young woman with gentle eyes, who offered a warm smile. "Dona Chiara, how are you feeling today?" she asked, and for a moment, Chiara felt a flicker of connection. "Just waiting," Chiara replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The nurse nodded, understanding the unspoken weight of her words. "I'm here if you need anything," she said before leaving the room, leaving Chiara once again enveloped in silence. As the days dragged on, Chiara grappled with her feelings of abandonment and sorrow. She longed to confront Matteo and Elisa, to express the hurt that had festered inside her for so long. But how could she do that when they seemed so distant, so wrapped up in their own lives? She felt like a relic of the past, unwanted and unloved. Each day, the room felt more suffocating, and Chiara's spirit began to wither. She clung to the hope for a visit, for a sign that her children still cared, but with each empty day, that hope diminished. The reality of her situation settled heavily on her shoulders, a relentless reminder that she had become an afterthought in the lives of those she had given everything for. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Chiara decided to take control of her destiny. She would not let the weight of her loneliness define her. With the help of that same compassionate nurse, she began to document her thoughts, her hopes, and her desires. She poured her heart into her journal, crafting letters she would never send, addressing them to Matteo and Elisa. In those pages, she expressed all that had remained unspoken, all the love and pain that had been bottled up for years. "Dear Matteo and Elisa," she wrote, "I have loved you with every fiber of my being, but now I fear that love was not enough. I am here waiting for you, but I feel invisible. I hope you find it in your hearts to remember me, to remember the love we once shared." As she closed the journal, tears streamed down her face. In that moment, she realized that she might not receive the love she so desperately craved, but she could still find solace in the act of expressing her truth. The weight of her loneliness was still present, but it was now accompanied by a flicker of hope, a hope that one day, her children would understand the depth of her love and the pain of her solitude. And so, as Chiara lay in her hospital bed, she held on to that hope, knowing that even in her darkest hours, she was still capable of love, still capable of dreaming of a brighter tomorrow. The sterile scent of antiseptic hung heavy in the air as Chiara lay on the hospital bed, the rhythmic beeping of the machines a constant reminder of her fragile state. The stark white walls felt like a prison, closing in on her, while the fluorescent lights flickered above, casting an unflattering glow on her weary face. Each passing day blended into the next, a monotonous cycle of medications and brief visits from nurses, none of whom could fill the void left by her children's absence. Chiara stared at the ceiling, her mind drifting back to happier times. She could almost hear the laughter of Matteo and Elisa echoing through the halls of their family home. She recalled Sunday dinners filled with warmth and chatter, the aroma of her homemade pasta wafting through the air. Those memories, once a source of joy, now felt like distant dreams, taunting her with the reality of her solitude. As the days turned into a blur, Chiara found solace in her journal. It became her confidant, a place where she could pour out her heart and express the emotions she kept bottled up. The pages were filled with her thoughts, of love, regret, and an overwhelming sense of abandonment. On particularly lonely nights, she wrote letters addressed to Matteo and Elisa, pouring out her soul in hopes that one day they would understand the depth of her pain. "Dear Matteo," she wrote one evening, her hand trembling with emotion, "I remember the day you were born like it was yesterday. You were my first child, and I cherished every moment of your life. I was there for your first steps, your first words, and every milestone that followed. I gave you my all, and now I feel like I am nothing to you. I just want to know that you still care." With each letter, Chiara felt a mixture of sorrow and catharsis. Even if her children never read them, she found comfort in the act of writing, as if it was a way to bridge the chasm that had formed between them. It was a way to express the love that still resided within her, despite the pain of their neglect. One morning, as the sun filtered through the window, casting a golden hue across the room, Chiara was jolted from her thoughts by the sound of hurried footsteps outside her door. Her heart raced with anticipation. Could it be Matteo or Elisa? Had they finally come to see her? The door swung open, and a young nurse named Sofia entered, her face a mix of concern and determination. "Dona Chiara, how are you feeling today?" she asked, her voice warm and inviting. "I'm managing," Chiara replied, forcing a smile. She appreciated Sofia's kindness, a stark contrast to the loneliness that enveloped her. The nurse had a way of making her feel seen, even if just for a moment. Sofia began checking the machines, adjusting the four and taking notes. "You know, I've been meaning to ask you. Is there anything I can do for you? Any visitors you'd like me to call?" Chiara hesitated, the weight of her emotions pressing down on her. I wish my children would come," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But they are busy. They have their own lives now." Sophia looked at her with empathy. "It's tough, I know. But sometimes, people don't realize how important connection is until it's almost too late. Maybe I could help reach out to them." At that moment, Chiara felt a flicker of hope. "Would you?" "I would be so grateful," she replied, her heart swelling with the possibility of seeing her children again. "I just want them to know that I'm here, that I need them." Sophia nodded, a determined look in her eyes. "I'll do my best. You deserve to have your family by your side." As Sophia left the room, Chiara's heart raced with anticipation. For the first time in what felt like ages, she dared to hope that her children might come. Maybe they would finally realize the gravity of her situation and the depth of her love. The thought sent a warmth through her, chasing away some of the coldness that had settled in her heart. Days passed, and Chiara found herself in a state of anxious anticipation. Each time the door creaked open, her heart would leap, only to sink when it was another nurse or doctor. But Sophia remained true to her word, visiting often and checking in on Chiara's progress. Their conversations became a lifeline, a connection to the outside world that Chiara desperately needed. "I spoke to someone in social services," Sophia informed her one afternoon, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "They're going to reach out to your children. I think they need to understand how serious this is." Chiara felt a surge of emotions, fear, hope, and a flicker of anger. Would they come? Would they care? "Thank you, Sophia. You don't know how much this means to me," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. As the days turned into a week, Chiara's health remained uncertain. The doctors monitored her closely, and while she felt the love and care from the staff, the absence of her children loomed large over her heart. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown, an unspoken reminder that time was running out. Then one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of purple and orange, Chiara heard a soft knock on her door. Her heart raced as she looked up, praying that this time it would be different. The door opened slowly, and in walked Matteo and Elisa, their expressions a mix of apprehension and guilt. Chiara's heart soared and plummeted simultaneously. They were here, but why now? "Mom," Matteo began, his voice shaky, "we got your message." Chiara's heart sank further. "You got my message?" she echoed, a lump forming in her throat. "I've been here for weeks, and you only come now?" Elisa stepped forward, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We didn't know, Mom. We thought you were fine. We're so sorry for not being here sooner," she said, her voice breaking. The weight of their apologies hung in the air, but Chiara felt a mix of relief and anger. "You thought I was fine? I've been alone, scared, and in pain. Didn't you care enough to check on me?" Matteo looked down, shame washing over his features. "We should have. We've been caught up in our lives, and we didn't think. I'm sorry, Mom. I really am." Chiara's heart ached as she looked at her children, the faces she had loved fiercely for so many years. "I just wanted to feel like I mattered," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Sophia, who had been quietly observing from the corner, stepped forward, her presence a grounding force. "It's never too late to reconnect," she said gently. "What matters now is that you're here together. This is a chance for healing." The room fell silent as Chiara wiped her tears, looking at Matteo and Elisa. "I need you both," she said, her voice steady. "I need to know that I'm not alone in this." In that moment, something shifted. The walls of resentment began to crumble, replaced by the possibility of understanding and love. As her children stepped closer, wrapping their arms around her, Chiara felt the warmth she had longed for return to her heart. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a chance to mend the broken pieces and rekindle the bond that had been lost. As they held each other, the cold embrace of the hospital bed began to fade, replaced by the warmth of family. And for the first time in a long while, Chiara felt hope bloom within her once more. The days following Matteo and Elisa's visit were a whirlwind of emotions for Chiara. The once sterile and cold hospital room began to feel alive with the echoes of laughter and whispers shared between family. Each morning brought a renewed sense of hope, and as her children visited daily, Chiara felt her heart slowly begin to heal. They brought her flowers, read to her from her favorite novels, and shared stories about their lives, filling the empty spaces with warmth. Yet, beneath the surface of this newfound connection, an undercurrent of tension lingered. Chiara could sense that there were things left unsaid, feelings that hovered in the air but were never fully articulated. Despite the comfort of their presence, a part of her still felt the weight of unresolved issues, and she knew that to truly mend their relationship, they needed to confront the painful truths that had kept them apart for so long. One afternoon, as the sunlight streamed through the window, casting a golden glow over the room, Chiara mustered the courage to broach the subject that had haunted her for years. She took a deep breath, her heart racing as she prepared to voice the feelings she had buried for far too long. "Matteo, Elisa," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "there's something I need to talk to you about." Both of her children paused, their expressions shifting from light-heartedness to concern. Matteo leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "What is it, Mom?" Chiara looked from one child to the other, searching for the right words. "I felt so alone for so long. When your father passed away, I thought you would be my support, my family. But as you grew older, it felt like I became an afterthought. I don't want to blame you, but I need you to understand how your absence has affected me." Elisa's eyes widened, and she glanced at Matteo, who shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Mom, we never meant to make you feel that way," Elisa replied, her voice choked with emotion. "We've been so caught up in our own lives that we didn't realize how much you needed us." Chiara nodded, a wave of sadness washing over her. "I know you both have your responsibilities, but there were times I wished I could just hear your voice, even if it was just a quick call. It felt like I was waiting for something that would never come." Silence enveloped the room as her children absorbed her words. The weight of her pain hung heavily in the air, and Chiara could see the realization dawning on their faces. "Mom, we're so sorry," Matteo said finally, his voice thick with remorse. "We took you for granted, and I regret that deeply." Chiara felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. "I loved you both so fiercely, and I still do. But I needed to feel that love in return, especially during my darkest days." Elisa reached out, taking her mother's hand in hers. "We want to do better, Mom. We want to be there for you now and in the future. Please forgive us." Chiara squeezed Elisa's hand, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within her. "Forgiveness is a journey, my dear. But knowing that you want to change gives me faith that we can rebuild what was lost." With that, the conversation shifted, and they began to share their own struggles, the pressures of work, the weight of responsibilities, and the challenges of parenting. Chiara listened intently, realizing that while she had been feeling abandoned, her children had been fighting their own battles. They were not the indifferent adults she had painted them to be, they were simply human, navigating the complexities of life as best they could. As the days passed, this new understanding blossomed between them, creating a bridge that connected their hearts once more. They began to share more than just the surface level of their lives. They opened up about their feelings, their fears, and their hopes. Chiara found herself laughing more, sharing old family jokes, and reminiscing about the good times they had shared. But just as the warmth of their reconnection began to settle in, an unexpected visitor arrived. The door swung open, and in walked a woman in her mid-30s, dressed in professional attire, her expression serious. Chiara's heart sank as she recognized her, the hospital social worker, a woman named Clara, who had been assigned to her case. "Dona Chiara," Clara said, her tone formal yet kind, "I need to speak with you and your children about an important matter regarding your care and future arrangements." Chiara's stomach churned. The hospital had been her refuge, but the thought of discussing her future in front of her children felt daunting. She exchanged glances with Matteo and Elisa, both of whom looked equally apprehensive. "Is this about my health?" Chiara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Clara nodded, her expression serious. "Yes, and it's crucial we address some issues that have come to light. I've been monitoring your case, and I'm concerned about your living situation once you're discharged." Matteo shifted in his seat, a look of confusion clouding his features. "What do you mean? Our mother will come home with us. We've already talked about it." Clara raised a hand to calm him. "I understand your intentions, but it's more complicated than that. You see, I've received reports regarding your mother's care prior to her hospitalization. There are concerns about her well-being and the lack of support she has experienced." Chiara felt her heart drop as Clara continued. "As a result, we need to assess whether it's safe for her to return home. If her children cannot provide the necessary care and attention she requires, alternative arrangements may need to be considered. Matteo's face flushed with anger. That's not fair. We've just started to rebuild our relationship. We want to take care of her. I know how much you want that, Clara replied, her tone softening, but it's essential to ensure that Chiara receives the care she needs. You both have busy lives, and I want to make sure she is safe and supported. Chiara felt tears welling in her eyes as she listened to Clara's words. She had longed for her children to step up and be there for her, yet now she feared that their connection would be tested once again. The weight of uncertainty loomed over her like a dark cloud. Mom, we'll figure it out, Elisa said, her voice filled with determination. We promise to do better. We can make this work. But Clara shook her head gently. It's not just about promises, Elisa. This is about providing a stable environment for your mother's recovery. We need to ensure she won't feel alone or neglected again. Silence filled the room as the reality of Clara's words settled in. Chiara's heart ached at the thought of leaving her home, of being placed in a situation where she might feel alone once more. But as she looked at her children, she saw the determination etched on their faces. They were willing to fight for her, to prove that their love was genuine. Clara, Chiara spoke up, her voice steady, I understand your concerns. I know I've been alone for a long time, but I believe my children are ready to be there for me now. They've realized what they've lost, and we're committed to making this work together. Clara studied Chiara's expression, her gaze shifting to Matteo and Elisa, who nodded fervently in agreement. I appreciate your willingness to work together, but we will need to put a plan in place. Regular check-ins, support services, and a clear understanding of each other's responsibilities will be crucial. Matteo took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. We'll do whatever it takes. We want to make sure our mother knows she is loved and cared for, no matter what. As Clara outlined the necessary steps, Chiara felt a sense of relief wash over her. Perhaps this was the turning point they needed, a chance to prove that love could conquer the challenges ahead. While the road to recovery would not be easy, it was a journey they would undertake together. As the meeting came to a close, Chiara looked at her children with newfound hope. They were willing to fight for her, to embrace the challenges that lay ahead. In that moment, she realized that while the past had been filled with pain and neglect, the future was an open canvas, a chance to rebuild, to reconnect, and to rediscover the love that had always been there, waiting to be nurtured once more. And so, with Clara's guidance and the unwavering support of her children, Chiara embarked on a new chapter of her life, one filled with the promise of healing, understanding, and the rediscovery of the bonds that had once seemed so fragile. The weight of loneliness began to lift, replaced by the warmth of family, and for the first time in a long time, Chiara felt the flicker of hope burning brightly in her heart. The days turned into weeks as Chiara continued her recovery in the hospital, her spirits lifted by the daily visits from Matteo and Elisa. They had begun to forge a new understanding, one built on open communication and a commitment to be present for one another. Yet, despite the warmth of their reconnection, the shadow of uncertainty loomed over Chiara's heart. Clara, the social worker, had outlined a comprehensive plan for Chiara's transition back home. Regular check-ins, home care assistance, and family meetings were all part of the strategy to ensure Chiara would not slip back into the isolation that had plagued her for so long. Yet, as Chiara soaked in the attention from her children, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was still amiss. One afternoon, as she sat in her hospital bed, a thought struck her like lightning. She had always intended to leave a legacy, a testament to her love, not just for her children, but for the memories they had shared as a family. With the recent changes in their relationship, she felt it was time to reassess her will. It was a painful decision, but one she knew was necessary. Matteo, Elisa, Chiara called out as they settled into their usual chairs beside her bed. I've been thinking about my will and what I want to do with my belongings and savings. Both of her children looked at her with concern. Mom, you don't have to worry about that right now, Matteo said, a hint of panic in his voice. You need to focus on getting better. Chiara shook her head, her resolve firm. No, I need to make this decision while I still can. I've always wanted to ensure that my legacy reflects my love for both of you, but I also want to ensure that it represents the values I hold dear. Elisa leaned forward, her eyes wide with curiosity. What are you thinking, Mom? Taking a deep breath, Chiara began to explain her thoughts. For years, I've poured my heart into this home and into our family. but I've also seen how easily love can fade when it's taken for granted. I want my will to reflect the importance of genuine connection and compassion." Matteo frowned, clearly confused. "What do you mean?" "I'm considering leaving my estate, not just my savings, but my home, to a local nursing home," Chiara said, her voice steady, though her heart raced. "It's a place where I found friendship and support over the years. They cared for me when I felt alone, and I want to ensure that others experience the same love and camaraderie I found there." Silence enveloped the room as her words sank in. Chiara watched her children's expressions shift from confusion to disbelief, and finally to anger. "Mom, that's not fair," Matteo exclaimed, his voice rising. "You can't just give everything away to strangers. We're your family." Chiara's heart ached at the pain in his voice. "I know you're my family, but love is about more than just blood ties. It's about being there for one another, about showing up when it counts. I felt like a burden for too long, and this is my way of taking control of my legacy." Elisa's eyes filled with tears. "But we want to be there for you now. We're trying to make things right. Please don't do this, Mom." Chiara felt the weight of their emotions press down on her. "This isn't about punishment, my darlings. It's about what I need to feel secure in my own heart. I want to ensure that my legacy reflects the love I didn't feel I received from you. It's not just about money, it's about the values we hold dear." "But what about us?" Matteo's voice cracked. "You've always talked about leaving us the house, your memories, all of it. We've always been your family." "I thought so too," Chiara replied softly, her heart breaking at the sight of her children's pain. "But now, I need to know that my love is not taken for granted. I want to leave a legacy of kindness, compassion, and genuine connection. If that means giving my estate to a place that nurtures the elderly, then that is what I must do." The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. Chiara could see the anger boiling beneath the surface of her children's hurt. "You don't understand," Matteo finally said, his voice shaking with emotion. "You're pushing us away, and now you want to leave everything to people who don't even know you." Chiara's heart ached at the thought of driving her children away, but she knew this was a decision she needed to make. "I'm not trying to push you away. I'm trying to find peace in my heart. This is my choice, and I hope you can respect that." Elisa looked down, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "We just want to be your family again. We want to show you that we care." "I know, sweetheart. And I want that too," Chiara replied, tears streaming down her face. "But it takes more than just words. It takes action, love, and commitment. I need to feel secure in my heart that my children will be there for me, not just when it is convenient." Matteo clenched his fists, struggling to contain his emotions. "This isn't just about you, Mom. This affects us too. We're trying to rebuild our relationship, and you're throwing it away." "I'm not throwing it away," Chiara exclaimed, her voice filled with desperation. "I'm trying to ensure that my love is honored and remembered. I want to leave a legacy that reflects the values I hold dear." The room was heavy with tension, and Chiara could feel the rift growing between them. She wished for nothing more than to bridge that gap, but she also knew that her heart was guiding her in this decision. After a long silence, Matteo finally spoke, his voice low. "If that's how you truly feel, then I guess there's nothing left to say." With that, he stood up abruptly, leaving the room without another word. Elisa followed him, tears streaming down her cheeks as she cast one last glance at Chiara. "We'll talk later," she whispered, her voice filled with heartbreak. As the door clicked shut, Chiara felt a deep sense of loss. She had hoped that her children would understand her reasoning, that they would see the love behind her painful decision. Instead, she felt a chasm open between them, one that threatened to swallow her whole. Lying back on her bed, Chiara closed her eyes, allowing the tears to flow freely. She had always wanted to be a good mother, to nurture her children and ensure they felt loved. But now, she felt like she was losing them all over again. The weight of her decision pressed heavily on her heart, and she wondered if she had made a grave mistake. The following days were filled with a suffocating silence. Chiara's heart ached for her children, but she remained resolute in her decision. She knew she needed to take control of her legacy and ensure that her love was honored in a way that felt right to her. As she worked with Clara to finalize her will, Chiara felt a sense of purpose. She poured her heart into the document, detailing her wishes and the reasons behind her choices. Each word was a testament to her love, a reflection of the life she had lived and the values she held dear. But as the final signatures were placed and her estate was officially designated to the nursing home she cherished, Chiara felt a shadow of doubt creep in. Had she made the right choice? Would her children ever understand her reasoning? In the quiet moments of the hospital, as she reflected on her life, Chiara realized that love was a complex tapestry woven from moments of joy and sorrow. She hoped that one day Matteo and Elisa would see the beauty in her decision, that they would understand the depth of her heart. And so, as she lay in her hospital bed, Chiara clung to the hope that love would ultimately triumph over pain, and that the bonds of family would one day be restored. The days following Chiara's decision about her will felt heavy with a palpable tension that permeated the air. Despite the warmth of the spring sun streaming through the hospital windows, Chiara felt a chill in her heart. Matteo and Elisa had not returned since their argument, leaving her alone with her thoughts and regrets. Each day blended into the next, marked only by the routine visits from nurses and the occasional check-in from Clara. Chiara would sit by the window, watching the world outside, a world that felt increasingly distant. She often found herself lost in memories, recalling the laughter of her children, the joy of family gatherings, and the love that had once filled their home. But now, those memories were tinged with sorrow, a constant reminder of the rift that had formed between them. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting a warm glow across her room, Chiara found herself clutching her journal, the pages filled with her emotions, hopes, and fears. The act of writing had become a lifeline, a way to process her feelings and find solace in her solitude. But that evening, she felt an overwhelming urge to reach out, to bridge the gap that had formed. With trembling hands, she began to write a letter to her children, pouring her heart onto the page. "Dear Matteo and Elisa," she wrote, "I know that my recent decisions have caused pain, and for that, I am deeply sorry. I never intended to push you away or make you feel unloved. I was trying to reclaim my sense of worth in a world where I felt invisible." As she penned her thoughts, tears streamed down her cheeks. "I hope you can understand that my love for you has never wavered, even in my darkest moments. I want you to know how much I cherish the time we've spent together, and how desperately I want to rebuild our relationship. Please, let us find a way to reconnect." With the letter complete, Chiara placed it in an envelope, addressing it to both Matteo and Elisa. She felt a flicker of hope igniting within her, a hope that perhaps this letter could serve as a bridge, a way to mend the wounds that had opened between them. The following morning, Clara entered the room, her usual warm smile brightening the atmosphere. "How are we feeling today, Dona Chiara?" she asked, taking a seat beside her. Chiara took a deep breath, her heart racing as she prepared to share her letter. "Clara, I wrote something for my children. I want to send it to them, but I don't know how to reach them." Clara's expression softened as she took the envelope. "I can help with that. I can deliver it to the front desk, and they can ensure it reaches them." "Thank you," Chiara replied, her voice filled with gratitude. "I just want them to know how much they mean to me." As Clara left the room with the letter in hand, Chiara felt a sense of relief wash over her. It was a small step, but it was a step toward healing. She hoped that her words would resonate with her children and open the door to a conversation they desperately needed to have. Later that day, as Chiara sat in her bed, she was surprised to see Sofia enter the room. The young nurse had been a constant source of comfort throughout her stay. "Dona Chiara, how are you feeling today?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "I'm trying to find my way back to my children," Chiara admitted, her voice tinged with vulnerability. Sofia nodded, understanding the weight of the situation. "It's a difficult journey, but it's one worth taking. You've shown so much strength in expressing your feelings. I believe your children will come around." Just then, the door opened slowly, and Matteo stepped inside, his expression hesitant. "Mom," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Chiara's heart leaped at the sight of him. "Matteo!" she exclaimed, her eyes shining with hope. "I'm so glad you're here." He moved closer, his shoulders tense. "I got your letter," he said, holding it in his hand as if it were a fragile treasure. "I wanted to talk." Chiara nodded, her heart racing. "I'm so sorry for how things turned out. I never wanted to hurt you or Elisa. I just wanted to be heard." Matteo took a deep breath, his gaze dropping to the floor. "I think we've all been hurting, Mom. I didn't realize how much I had taken you for granted." I was so focused on my own life that I didn't consider how you felt." Tears filled Chiara's eyes as she saw the weight of remorse on her son's face. "I just wanted to feel loved, Matteo. I wanted to know that I mattered." Matteo took a step closer, and Chiara could see the sincerity in his eyes. "You matter more than anything to me. I'm sorry for not being there when you needed me. I want to do better. I want to be the son you deserve." In that moment, the walls that had separated them began to crumble. Chiara felt the warmth of hope envelop her heart as she reached out, pulling Matteo into an embrace. "I love you, my son," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I love you too, Mom," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. As they pulled apart, Chiara saw Elisa standing in the doorway, her eyes wide with surprise. "I came as soon as I heard," she said, her voice trembling. She stepped forward, and Chiara opened her arms, welcoming her daughter into the embrace. "I'm so sorry, Mom," Elisa sobbed, her tears mingling with Chiara's. "I didn't realize how much I had hurt you. I want to be there for you, to show you that I care." Chiara held her children tightly, the weight of sorrow melting away in their embrace. "We'll figure this out together," she promised, her heart swelling with hope. "We'll make it through this. Love is stronger than any pain we've faced." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Chiara felt the warmth of their love surrounding her. It was a love that had been tested but had ultimately triumphed. In that moment, she knew that they were on the path to redemption, a path that would lead them back to one another, stronger than before. Days passed, and with each visit, Chiara, Matteo, and Elisa worked on rebuilding their relationship. They shared memories, laughter, and tears, all while learning to communicate openly about their feelings. They began to understand one another in ways they never had before, and with each conversation, the bonds of love grew deeper. One afternoon, Clara entered the room, her expression bright. "Dona Chiara, I have good news. Your doctors are pleased with your progress, and they believe you may be discharged soon." Chiara's heart soared at the thought of returning home. "Really? That's wonderful." However, Clara continued, "It's important to have a solid plan in place to ensure your safety and well-being once you're back home. We'll need to discuss the arrangements for home care and support services." Matteo and Elisa exchanged glances, determination etched on their faces. "We'll take care of everything, Clara," Matteo said firmly. "We want to make sure our mom has all the support she needs." Chiara's heart swelled with gratitude as she watched her children rally around her. "Thank you both. It means the world to me." As Clara outlined the details for their homecoming, Chiara felt a sense of peace settling over her. They were on a new journey together, one filled with love, understanding, and the promise of brighter days ahead. And so, with the warmth of her family surrounding her and the knowledge that they were committed to one another, Chiara looked towards the future with hope in her heart. The path to healing was not without its challenges, but together they would navigate it, forging a new legacy built on love, compassion, and the unwavering bond of family. The day of Chiara's discharge arrived with a blend of excitement and apprehension. As she sat by the hospital window for the last time, she felt the gentle rays of the morning sun warming her skin, a stark contrast to the cold loneliness she had once felt in this very room. Today, she was not alone. Matteo and Elisa stood by her side, their hands clasped in silent solidarity, a promise that they would not let history repeat itself. Clara entered with a warm smile, holding a set of discharge papers. "Well, Dona Chiara, it looks like you're free to go." Chiara exhaled, a wave of relief washing over her. "Thank you, Clara, for everything. You've been a true friend." Clara placed a gentle hand on Chiara's shoulder. "You've come a long way, and now you have your family by your side." Elisa helped Chiara into her coat while Matteo gathered her belongings. As they walked out of the hospital together, the fresh air felt like a new beginning. Matteo had arranged for a car to take them home, and as Chiara settled into the seat, she felt the comforting presence of her children next to her. It was a moment of quiet reconciliation, a shared understanding of the journey ahead. Arriving home, Chiara was met with a heartwarming sight. The house had been cleaned, fresh flowers adorned the tables, and the scent of home-cooked food filled the air. It was a simple yet powerful gesture, a sign that her children were truly committed to making things right. "I hope you like it," Elisa said hesitantly. "We wanted you to feel at ease." Chiara's eyes welled with tears. "It's perfect." They sat down for dinner, the first meal they shared as a reunited family. Conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter and reminiscing. It was as if time had softened their wounds, allowing love to take precedence over past grievances. As the days turned into weeks, Chiara's health improved, and so did her relationship with Matteo and Elisa. They visited regularly, ensuring she was never alone. Matteo would bring groceries, while Elisa often spent afternoons with her, sipping tea and talking about everything and nothing. The home that had once felt like a prison of loneliness was now filled with warmth. One evening, as they sat on the patio watching the sunset, Chiara reached for their hands. "I want you both to know how much this means to me. I made mistakes, but I never stopped loving you." Matteo squeezed her hand. "We made mistakes too, Mom. But we're here now. That's what matters." Elisa nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "We're a family, and family finds a way back to each other." Months passed, and with them came a newfound sense of peace. One day, Chiara received an unexpected visitor, Clara. She carried a small package and a knowing smile. "I found this among your things at the hospital," Clara said, handing her the package. "I thought you might want to open it now." Chiara unwrapped it carefully, revealing her journal. The very pages where she had poured out her sorrow, her regrets, her hopes. She traced her fingers over the worn cover and smiled. "This journal helped me find my way back." Clara nodded. "And now, you found what truly matters." As Chiara looked at her children laughing in the distance, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had given her a second chance, a chance to love, to be loved, and to cherish the family she had almost lost. And as the golden hues of the sunset bathed them in its glow, Chiara knew that this was not just an ending. It was a beginning. A new dawn, full of love, redemption, and the unbreakable bond of family.